Alright, so alright, I am recording. I don't remember this microphone being pinned to my chin inside of my helmet before, but you know, we'll see how it works out. It's got this little windscreen on it, or dead cat as they call it. So I need to, man, I feel like I haven't ridden for a long time. I feel like I have to think when I ride now. Whereas before, I just kind of, it just was like riding a bicycle, you know? You don't have to think about it, you just do it. Very natural. So I'm gonna just take a short little ride today because it's like 65 degrees and beautiful out here. Got to wear my new Target denim jacket today, so that's cool. Fashion, you know. I don't know if denim is still cool or if it's never been cool, but I've never really had a denim jacket. Yeah, that's not true. I had one, and it had like Sherpa on the inside, but it was like kind of constrictive. Like I couldn't move in it. I feel like my shoulders are gonna rip the back out all the time. You know, some people have that problem. Old Tommy boy, Chris Farley, he had that. Anybody see that movie? Fat guy in a little coat. Fat guy in a little coat. But anyway, alright, I'm riding. I'm freaking riding. I haven't done this for a while. But yeah, just a short little ride today. But I don't know, I thought I would talk about what led me to the old podcast producer role that I'm in now, the career, if you will. I don't know if I would call it a career, but that's the thing that keeps coming up for me now, and I think it's pretty darn cool. So so anyway, where it all started podcast wise was actually working with my, wow, sorry, a little bit of something in my throat. Anyway, so the podcast, starting the podcast stuff, podcast production, you know, whatever. I first started with my friend Adam, which I brought up in previous episodes, and I think I mentioned maybe in the last video that I didn't do much. I sure did not. You know, he started this podcast because of his love for Star Wars, and that one is called Thank the Maker. He started that podcast with his good friend of many years, Ryan Key, who's in the band Yellow Card. He's actually the singer, which is cool. I was actually a fan of Yellow Card as well as Story of the Year. You know, they're from that same era. I graduated high school in 04, so you can do the math on that. You can figure out how old I am. I mean, I don't have any problem with telling you how old I am. I'm 37. But anyway, so when I was in high school, that's when both Yellow Card and Story of the Year's first albums came out, which are probably their most famous. So there's they're both Avenue names, which is kind of interesting too. So Yellow Card was Ocean Avenue. There's a place on Ocean Avenue, you know that one. And then there's Story of the Year, which was Page Avenue. Page Avenue is actually a street out here in St. Louis, so that's kind of cool, I'd say. And their song that is most recognizable probably is Until the Day I Die, Until the Day I Die. Oh my god, look at those deer. Did you see those deer right there? Oh dear. Oh god, dad jokes. Hey bud. So Until the Day I Die. But my favorite song was actually Anthem of Our Dying Day. So lots of dying going on in their songs, at least in the title, right? Anthem of Our Dying Day. I'm sure you've heard this one if you are not an infant. It goes a little something like stars will shine like his tears tonight. This is the moment that, you know that one. Smell the ocean air. Yeah, you know that song. God, don't pretend like you don't. Anyway, so that is a tangent. I went off on a little tangent there, didn't I? Haven't even gotten to the meat of the video yet. I'll probably cut out a lot of this stuff at the beginning because it's just me getting used to talking while riding. What's up, dude? Look at that guy. Flintstone powered bike. You see that? Haha. That's old school. So anyway, so we started the podcast called Thank the Maker Podcast. They're both in these bands, so it's just kind of a cool concept that they are guys in successful rock bands that also love Star, like super fan, love Star Wars, and they talked about this. That's kind of what they bonded over a number of years back, and they were talking about, man, we should start a podcast about this. And then they just didn't for years. They just didn't do it for years. And I remember actually like talking to Adam about it whenever we were working at the Apple store, and he told me that he was wanting to do that, and I was like, oh yeah, dude, do it, that'd be amazing, just do it, just start. And eventually he did, and it's all remote because it was, you know, kind of COVID years or whatever, so it was all done over this program called Riverside, which is like Zoom but way better, like way better, and really good for podcasts, and it's only getting better all the time. So I would be at my home and I would jump into their recording, and I would just like Google stuff and try to throw them off by making them laugh by the Google stuff that I would pull up. But you know, I would also, you know, if they couldn't think of like the name of this actor or what else they're from or whatever, I would just kind of Google all that stuff, and then I would give them that information. So that was really fun. And they at some point they picked up a guy that was just he was on their show, and it was just like a sorry, it threw me off. There's a cop right there, old Copper-Rooski. So there was a guy that they had on the show named Nick Gambarian. He's from the band Bayside. You know, I don't really expect a lot of people to know their music, just because they were kind of regional. They started out in, I mean, very popular, but just not, you know, probably not on the same level as Yellow Card and Story of the Year, but very popular in their region, right? So they started out in like the New York, New Jersey area, got very popular there. They ended up relocating to Los Angeles. I don't know if they all did, but I know that's where Nick moved. So he lives out in the LA area. They got really big on that side of the country as well. Very good, very talented. And Nick is a really cool dude. Well, Nick actually became the third host. So they were rolling with 3 hosts, and they still are to this day. But anyway, so I got to have a little bit of fun with the podcast with them, and then at some point, Adam, he started another podcast with his band, Story of the Year, and he asked me to hang out with that as well, and so I kind of just went there and did the same thing. And really, I just kind of hung out most of the time. I didn't really do a whole lot. You know, part of that is that Adam is, I think, legitimately OCD. I know a lot of people say that they're OCD or they have OCD or whatever. And, you know, maybe they have aspects of it. but it's just kind of like quirks of their personality or preferences or being afraid of letting go of control or whatever. But I think Adam's is a little bit beyond that. I think maybe, I don't know, he might even be officially diagnosed with it. I'm not sure. Okay, I think I can go. Yeah, maybe officially diagnosed. But, you know, part of the deal is that he couldn't let go of control of the editing and, you know, stuff like that. Not that I was really trying to take it on, because I was just doing it, you know, for free, just hanging out with him, and it was fun. But it would have been a good experience for me, you know, to get a little bit more there. And beyond that, I did try to help with a couple things a couple times, and he always has a lot of notes, you know, and I already have a hard time completing things anyway if it gets too complex. And so that combination of him kind of not allowing me to finish things because it was just never quite right, never quite perfect, and then me also just having a hard time just getting anything done anyway if it's too complex. I just didn't really ever get to do anything for that podcast, you know, on any kind of measurable way, you know, which is totally fine. Again, I was just doing it for fun. It was really fun. But that's kind of where it all started. So I got a little bit of behind the scenes of how all that stuff is done just by hanging out with Adam and seeing how he was doing stuff and whatever. So fast forward to some probably a couple years after I started doing that with them, at least. I went up to Matt Vincent's gym here in St. Louis and met up with him, and I already said met up. Met him, not met up. I met him for the first time, right, at his gym. And look at him, goats. I love this land out here so much. Ah, it's so pretty. Just love riding through here. As I try not to make this video too long, because it's already, it says it's almost 13 minutes in, which is too many minutes for where I am in my story. So yeah, okay, so I'll do some cutting. Man, look how pretty it is. A horsey. Look at a horsey. All right, back to it. I met Matt, and we just, you know, we hung out and got to know each other a little bit, and he found out that I did photo video stuff, and you know, also I did a little bit of podcast stuff with Adam, and he was actually, it just worked out nicely, he was actually looking for somebody to help him with his podcast, like getting it, you know, edited up and posted, and you know, getting the graphics made. Oh my god, another deer. Can y'all see that? God, this is such a ADHD moment here. Squirrel. Wow, it's so bright I can't see where I'm going, so hopefully there's no more deer in the road. Holy moly. So he needed help with his podcast, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I talked to Brant, and Brant is actually Matt's, like, basically media dude, fully does everything, you know. Matt can do stuff too, but he delegated that out to Brant, and Brant is very good at all that he does: photo, video, motion graphics, graphic design, everything. Very good. So he kind of had things all templated out already, so it was easy for me to just jump in and figure out the workflow, and then I just started doing it for months and months, and I'm still doing it, which is cool. So I get to stay connected with those dudes. Wow, I just sat there with my blinker on that whole time. That's a very common thing, by the way, that people that ride motorcycles leave their blinker on because it is not self-canceling. So it just kind of stays on sometimes for miles if you're not paying attention. Anyway, got some experience with that for months. So that was really valuable experience. you know, getting really comfortable with the workflow of doing all the editing of the audio podcast plus the video podcast, getting all the graphics and everything, and the sponsors, and making the social media graphics, and making the little you know, Instagram reels or whatever, you know, like the vertical videos as just like little clips, highlights, if you will. So that's where I got all the experience with that. And then at some point there's this fellow named Mike Krausen. He started working with Matt with some kind of like sales and, you know, sales type stuff, helping Matt out with that to try to, you know, increase his sales, which he did fantastically. So very cool that they were able to develop that mutually beneficial relationship. And so Mike was talking to another deer. My God. Mike was talking to Matt, I guess. This is the story. I don't know 100%. Oh, baby's getting dropped off. So yeah, I don't know the story 100%, but from what I gather is Mike was asking if Matt knew anybody that could help him starting up his podcast. And Matt was like, well, I got Drew. Drew can probably do it. He does mine. And so so he told me about it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. But I wasn't really committed, because one thing about me is I really love to protect my free time, even at the at risk of losing money to some degree, you know, losing out on money. And so he actually hooked us up on a call, which I don't know, I just wasn't ready, you know. And I talked to Mike, and I was like, I actually turned it down initially. I was like, I don't know if I can handle that with the work that I'm doing currently, because I'm also doing, you know, not only do I work with Matt, and I do my own little, you know, side quests that come up, but I also work for, and I have been for a while, I work for an orthopedic clinic. Like, basically I do all their photo, video, drone, graphic, you know, whatever, multimedia stuff, you know. And that's actually a couple hours away from where I live, and I have to go on site most of the time if I want to get work with them. And so there's a certain amount of hours per week that I have to dedicate to that. And so I was just I was unsure of whether I was going to be able to dedicate the amount of time that needed to be dedicated. Well, I was trying to help him out. I was talking to him, you know, talking to Mike about, like, because he was asking me questions about his setup and what my recommendations were on, you know, some of this stuff. And and at the end of the conversation, he's like, "You sure you don't want to do it?" I was like, I mean, I'm really considering it. I said, but right now I'm thinking probably I don't know if I could do it. And so that was the end of the conversation, and I had given up that money and that experience, and you know, that's just what I decided to do. Well, fast forward, my wife Nicole and I, we went on a trip to go hang out with her mom and her mom's family, extended family in Las Vegas. And I have a buddy that lives out there named Shane. So Shane is a freelancer, you know, self-employed. He does mostly video work as far as I know, but he's also multi-talented. He's a musician. He can take great photos. I don't even know what else, but he can do a lot. He's good at everything, you know. And anyway, so he lives out there, and we went and met up with him and just hung out, you know. And I was telling him about what I was doing and how I kind of turned this thing down or whatever, and he basically kind of talked me into doing it, because you know, basically the philosophy that he has adopted in his business is essentially don't ever say no to work. If you can do any of it, then you can figure out how to do all of it. You know, if you're just uncomfortable with one aspect of whatever the job is that you have to do, then just find somebody who can do it, you know? So, or you can outsource some things. Just don't say no to the work. Just figure out how to make the job work for you, you know? And so I was pretty inspired by that. I really appreciate his friendship and his insight. And so after we got back from Las Vegas, I texted Mike back and I was like, yo, Mike, you find anybody to do that work yet? And I was fully expecting him to be like, yeah, because Mike he seems to be a very action-oriented guy. But I don't know, man. The universe was like, just try it, dude. So I reached back out to him and he said he hadn't found anybody yet. And I'm like, well, let me do it. And so that's what happened. So we just got done getting all, like, I had to create all the templates for everything, you know, for the YouTube intro and, you know, the audio podcast, and create all the graphics and the logos and all that stuff. So we got all that up and running, and so now it's going to be pretty smooth sailing. And now I have 2 podcasts that I'm working on, and I am potentially going to have another one that starts up with Andrew, who is the guy who, he's my contact with the orthopedic clinic. So he wants to do like an orthopedic centered, of course, podcast. I don't know all the details because we haven't had the big convo yet about it. You know, about everything that'll be involved with that, and in addition to like compensation and how that's going to work, whether it's going to be like project based or like a friggin' retainer, which ideally it's a retainer, because then I don't have to like worry about how much this project is worth or whatever. We can just come up with a number that we stick to every month until they don't want to do it anymore. So hopefully that's a long time in the future, because the beautiful thing about this podcast production, especially if it's all recorded remotely with Riverside or whatever, is I can be completely remote. So essentially the whoever's recording the podcast, they just record it, and then once they're done, they just dump it into Dropbox or something like that, and I grab the files and I go to town. I wouldn't mind having about maybe 4 or 5 podcasts. I think at that point I'd probably be about tapped out on you know, how much time I'm willing to invest into that, because I like I said, I value my free time and you know, just freedom overall, to be able to take trips when I want. I mean, I've taken more trips in these past probably 2 years, 3 years than I have in my entire life by far, after becoming a freelancer. And it is something that I very much value. And if you watch the last video, you'll remember that I was talking about not waiting until you retire to experience things, experience the world, what the world has to offer, experience new places and cultures and foods and, you know, whatever. Go do all those things now, so you don't feel like you've missed out your whole life, and that you have to have a shitload of money set aside just so you can afford to not only live when you're retired, but also afford to spend and experience the things that you have kind of deprived yourself of the rest of your life, you know. Well, when I say the rest of your life, it sounds like I'm talking about from that point forward. No, I mean from that point backward, you've kind of been deprived of experiencing all the things that there is, you know. So podcasts, man, if you have any experience at all with video editing and a tiny bit of like Photoshop, maybe a little bit of graphics, stuff like that, you know. Especially if you have any experience with like audio editing, like with Adobe Audition or whatever, you know. It doesn't have to be that one. That's just the one. I just use all Adobe, even though sometimes I wish I didn't, because they're good, but they're also not good, and I don't really need to go into all the details of that necessarily, of why. If anybody's interested in knowing that, it wouldn't be a very long video. I would just say I don't like it. It's slow on Mac, especially because I use Mac. I used to work at Apple, and all makes sense, right? And it's kind of expensive, you know. I mean, I think mine's still discounted, but it's like $55 a month for everything. And, you know, paying that monthly is fine, you know, and you can write all that off. Another advantage of being a business owner is anything that is used for your business, you can deduct on your taxes. So that's great. But anyway, podcast production, especially these days, you know, I think that a lot of people are like, oh, there's no money in that. And I thought that because I didn't think there was any money in that, you know. Like, it would take a lot to, you know, with monetization and a huge number of downloads and, you know, stuff to generate any kind of money with that. And I think that's still true, you know, unless you are up in the top 1%ers of podcasters out there, like, you know, fucking Joe Rogan. That's the first one that comes to mind. He's probably making some money, you know, with monetization or whatever. But there's actually a huge market out there for people who have influence already with something different outside of podcasting. So, like Mike, for instance, Mike owns a company called AR Funnel, so acquisition and retention. It's a software that essentially it leverages SMS, you know, text messaging, and it helps generate a lot more qualified leads for you know, people who do a lot of sales in whatever their industry is, which, you know, it's kind of geared toward like coaches or life coaches or mentors, or, you know, fitness industry people. Just made a little loop here, if you noticed. So it works really well for them, but I mean, really, it could work for anyone. But yeah, Mike does really good stuff with all that quality, high quality. I know he also owned like a coffee company, which did really well. He recently sold that because he decided to move. He was living in Dallas. He actually moved out here towards St. Louis, so that's kind of handy for me. So if I need to do anything in person, I can just drive 15-20 minutes to his house, which is cool. Where was I going with this? Where was I going with this, guys? Yeah, so anyway, so people who already have their own thing going, maybe they are very successful in that thing already, and they want something that is going to amplify their reach, or maybe just be a little bit more personal, you know, be a more personal touch, you know, with their potential clientele base, or anybody who's interested in the thing that they're already doing, you know. And so those people already have a lot of income generation going on, and so they're paying you from that money. They're not paying you from the money they make with the podcast. So I think that's a very important thing to understand, is it's not about people that want to be podcasters for a living. It's about people that made a living with something else, got successful, and want to be podcasters now. So that's out there, guys. And there are tons of people that have been thinking about doing podcasts, but they're overwhelmed by the prospect of starting it up. So the cool thing about a guy like me, or you know, a guy or a gal, or you know, whatever person like you that has these skills already kind of in your repertoire, they don't have to hire a bunch of people. They can just hire you, and you can do it all for them, you know. So that's something to consider. Definitely something to consider. It's there's a lot of money out there, and there's a lot of opportunity. So you know, if you don't have that skill set yet, then maybe that's something you should work on. Figure out how that's all done, and then you can find somebody who needs you. Solve that problem for them, you know. But anyway, this has been a 30-minute. Wow, that felt like that might have been death coming. They were going way too fast. So all right, well, I didn't die, so that's great. Having a great day, guys. But anyway, I'll probably end this podcast. My God. I'll probably end this video here. But if anybody has any questions about anything, feel free to ask. You know, shit, you can find me on Instagram and just send me a DM. Fair warning, I am kind of bad about checking stuff on there. I mean, I'm on there a lot, but when it comes to, like, you know how it goes. If somebody doesn't follow, you don't follow somebody, then sometimes it'll go into like a, you know, whatever. It's hidden. The actual the messages, the DMs that you get. So I'll you know, I'll make it a point to start checking those things more often, just in case anybody has any questions. Any of the 18 people who watches these videos. But I got to tell you, I'm grateful for those 18 people. The fact that anybody's watching these at all is a good enough reason for me to keep doing it. I mean, it's a good enough reason to do it regardless, because I enjoy it, and I like talking, and I like, you know, I don't know, I like trying to help people out and help people move toward living the life of their dreams instead of just living, you know. Just living is fine, but if you're dissatisfied with that, then you know, there's people out there that can help you discover what it is you want to do, and help you get moving in the right direction. But I'm not saying I don't have any, you know, whatever. I'm not like a mentor or anything like that. But I may have information that can help you and will spark something for you. So anyway, yeah, hit me up. All right, bye.